How's it going, everyone? It is I, Anime Outlet, and this is part 1 of What If Deku Had a Drawing Quirk. And before I start this What If, I'd like to ask you all to put your What If suggestions down in the comments section below. And now, let's begin. Before I get into the actual story, I would like to explain to you all what Izuku's quirk is going to be. Izuku has 5 pencils: a normal pencil, a red pencil, a blue pencil, a brown pencil, and a white pencil. Now, the normal pencil that he has, whatever he draws will then just form into reality. So say, for example, he draws a cat, it will then form into a cat. Or if he draws a gorilla, it will then form into a gorilla. Now, the red pencil signifies fire, while the blue pencil signifies water, the brown pencil signifies earth, and the white pencil signifies air. All of these pencils will be used to create attacks of that variant. However, a drawback of this is that it consumes a ton of Izuku's energy. Now, with the normal pencil, the bigger that the thing he creates, say the bigger the animal that he creates, the more energy it's going to take up. So Izuku would have to end up doing a lot of energy training. Now, Izuku also has another benefit with the red fire pencil. So say an opponent is standing right in front of him, and he takes out this pencil and makes a stroke going up in the air. This would cause an attack to happen where it would go up and cut the person that he was standing in front of him like a sword or a knife. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention is that Izuku can draw things in the air and it will still form, as Izuku's strokes that he makes while drawing still exist. It doesn't have to be on the ground, on paper, or on a canvas. He can just start drawing anything in the air. So that's why it has extreme energy drawbacks, and that is the main drawback of his quirk. Because it is so powerful and he could basically make anything in reality that he wishes to draw, that means he's going to have a hefty drawback to go with it, which in this case would happen to be an energy/stamina drawback. So Izuku would end up being born to Inko and Hisashi Midoriya. I'm sorry if I pronounce either of their names wrong. I believe I sometimes pronounce Izuku's father wrong, but that doesn't really matter. So quickly after Izuku is born, a small chest would end up forming right on top of Izuku, as Inko would quickly pick this chest off of him, as she would end up opening the chest to see that there were 5 pencils inside. Like I said, the normal pencil and then the 4 other pencils that signify the elements. So she would end up seeing this as she would smile knowing that Izuku had a quirk, as this easily showed he had a quirk, as the doctors would also see this in the room and would know Izuku also had a quirk, as they would quickly write that down before saying that they'll see what his quirk is when he ends up becoming 4. Now, Izuku would end up growing up as a very artistic kid. Inko, seeing that Izuku had a drawing quirk, would instantly get him into drawing, buying him paper and crayons and all of these sorts of things so he can just start drawing whatever he wants. And Izuku was just naturally good at drawing. He was very good at it even before the age of 4. When Izuku was 3, he created a full portrait of his mother in just crayons. This is the level of skill that Izuku had that his quirk brought into Izuku's mind. So Izuku would end up turning the age of 4, as he would rush to his mother's room, yelling for her to take him to the quirk doctor's office, as he's really excited to see what his quirk was. As Inko would smile, knowing that she already knew what his quirk pretty much was, as she had the chest that formed right on top of him when he was born. However, she decided to hide it so Izuku couldn't get to it before he was 4, just so he didn't hurt himself somehow doing something with it. So Izuku would end up going to the quirk doctor's office, as they would end up taking a few tests on Izuku, as they would end up coming back and would tell them the results. So it appears young Izuku here has a quirk, and it's a very powerful one at that. It's a drawing quirk. Anything he draws will come to real life. I believe you know what this means with the thing that happened when he was born. I'll let you discuss that when y'all get home. However, there is a slight drawback to this. Izuku won't have an energy type thing. Izuku will have as much energy as all the other kids, however, his quirk uses so much more energy than all of them, meaning if he wanted to become a hero, it would mean a lot more intense training, and this could possibly take away some of his childhood if you wanted to get him immediately into training, if you wanted him to become a hero. And that could also be a choice you, young Midoriya, could make. As Izuku would smile knowing that he was going to become a hero, and he even had a quirk that was with his favorite thing to do: draw. So when they would get home, Inko would go into her closet as she would pull out the small chest with the 5 pencils inside, as she would then hand the box to Izuku and would then give Izuku a pencil, as Izuku would then run over to a piece of paper and would start to draw something on it. He would end up drawing just some random thing. Let's say, for example, a cat. As Izuku would draw a cat, as it would then leap out of the page, as Izuku would look just in awe at what he had then created, as Inko would see what Izuku made, before smiling at Izuku. So it appears you made a cat. Now I'm not sure what could happen to it, if it disappears after a while or if it's permanent. If it's permanent, that probably wouldn't be too good for you to use it too much. And Inko was right. However, it wasn't permanent at all, as Izuku's creations can only last 5 minutes with just a novice amount of training. If he were to train more, it could last up to 20 minutes, all the way up to an hour. However, the bigger the animal gets, the smaller the time it has just remaining standing before it would then just deteriorate into nothing, which would be seen as the art getting worse and worse, as the cat looked like a full cat, just in black and white, and that's how you could tell Izuku's animals apart, as they were black and white animals. And so, when the cat finally sat back down, the art would start to get worse, and worse, which would happen in just around 5 seconds, as the cat would then fall into just nothingness. As Izuku would be saddened that his cat friend had left in just under 5 minutes, but would also be happy with how cool his quirk was. So Izuku the next day would rush into school and would show everyone his cool quirk, using his normal pencil, and would end up drawing just another cat, as Izuku loved cats for some odd reason. I mean, he's 4, and he just likes small animals. So when Izuku would create this, the entire class would look just in awe at this, as Izuku had just created this tiny cat, and a ton of kids were just playing with it. It was awesome. As the cat would then fall down and would deteriorate, as Izuku would tell them that's something that just happens. But he can create pretty much any animal with this, and he doesn't really know anything else he can create just yet. So Izuku can also create a rock if he wanted to, a tree if he wanted to, but this would still be black and white. But these would also be as light as paper. So if someone wanted to pick up this cat, it'd be light as paper. So if Izuku created a gorilla, it wouldn't hit like paper, but it would be able to be picked up like paper. For Izuku, that is. Everything else, or everyone else who tries to pick it up, say Izuku creates a massive boulder. He can easily pick it up with one finger, while the rest of everyone there couldn't pick it up at all, as it would weigh as much as a boulder. So Izuku would end up being the just star pupil of the class, as someone would end up just hating Izuku for this. However, it would end up turning into a rivalry. This person would end up being Bakugo Katsuki, as Bakugo would end up pushing himself harder and to train faster and faster, because he knew the UA exams were only in 11 years. Bakugo was an extremely intelligent 4-year-old, and he knew if he wanted to get into UA, he was going to have to start training. So while Izuku was getting, praise for his quirk, Bakugo was training and trying to get stronger and stronger. As Bakugo still had a natural, very powerful quirk, he just didn't have one much like Izuku. However, while Izuku was receiving this praise, he would also be shielding it from reaching any ego that could possibly manifest. Izuku was always told to never brag and to never have a huge ego, never to brag or show off, as that just wouldn't be cool. It wasn't really nice, and you shouldn't become so, arrogant that you are the best just because you received a ton of praise. You should always remain humble in things, and there's always someone better than you. You're never the best unless you can somehow manage that. But even then, you shouldn't become someone arrogant, like Bakugo and Canon, but Inko wouldn't have this thing to show Izuku. However, she would show Endeavor. She would give an example of Endeavor, someone who is the second best hero in their country, and is arrogant about it, but just never was able to pass All Might. And she also showed how humble and nice All Might was, even though he was the best, as Izuku would end up looking up to All Might and wanting to be more like All Might, as Izuku would start to train in his backyard when he turned 5, creating animals and all sorts of things with his normal pencil. However, he wouldn't get into the 4 other pencils until he turned 10. Seeing how powerful they could be, Inko would end up telling Izuku not to do anything with them just yet, as she would end up asking Hisashi, who's overseas during work, to buy Izuku and them just a massive plot of land just in the middle of nowhere, a massive flat field, so Izuku could practice his artwork. And so that's what he would end up doing. However, he would also end up hiring someone to build a house out there, to plant trees, and to just put grass and all of that out there to make it nice, as this would end up being an hour away from their current home, but Inko didn't mind just having to drive Izuku every day to school and back, as she wanted Izuku to have the best life possible and to even become a hero. She wanted Izuku to be whatever he wanted and was going to make Izuku become a hero if he wanted to be a hero. So Izuku would end up going into this backyard a month after the house was built, finally wanting to practice his skills. This was a day after his 10th birthday, as he would end up grabbing a red pencil that he saw and would end up drawing some random thing. He drew a circle just to see what would happen, as the circle would then turn red, as fire would then spew out of the circle like a fire. So when Izuku turned to the blue one, he assumed it was water, so Izuku created a wave, and from Izuku forward, a massive wave formulated and crashed down onto just the plot of land in front of him, as Izuku would see this. Now, all of these creations weren't black and white like his normal animal creations. These were real-life things coming to life, as these weren't going to be permanent things. However, with his brown pencil, this is where it would change, as Izuku would end up making just a square with this brown pencil, as right in front of him a massive square or cube like thing, or a rectangular prism, would come right out of the ground, sticking out of it, as it just wouldn't go away, as Izuku would see that this was some sort of earth pencil, as he would also then use the white pencil, slashing it upwards in a diagonal form, as wind would then go flying behind him, as it would then smash into the rectangular prism that he had created with the earth pencil, shattering it into tiny little pieces of dirt, falling down to the ground. The Midoriya household wasn't just built on a random plot of dirt and a massive field of dirt surrounding it. It was built in a plot of dirt that had just had a bunch of trees removed from it for lumber, as it was in a completely surrounded area by forest, and it had been removed so Izuku would have area to practice his quirks. So, or not his quirks, just practice his quirk and getting better at it. So, it was no surprise that an animal would end up walking onto their property, as Izuku would end up hearing it behind him as it was sounding like it was about to attack. Getting spooked, Izuku, who was practicing with the fire pencil, would end up jumping back and would end up making a diagonal line just going up, as this line would end up creating just a diagonal wall of fire going right at the bear, as it would then get burnt. A pencil would then fall right on top of Izuku's head as he would look down, as he would see his red pencil start to turn orange, as Izuku would then pick up another red pencil, as the bear would then start to charge at Izuku, being angry, as Izuku would slash upwards with this pencil, as a cut would then form, slashing down on the bear, chopping it straight in half, as Izuku would look at this red pencil in complete shock and horror, as he would then open up the chest that was now on a belt that he had made himself, as he would put the red pencil down before looking at the now red, or the now orange, fire pencil, as he would create another circle, as through this circle would then go out fire, as he would just be in shock. Had he just gained another part of his quirk? Or was it the fact that he had just hurt another animal or living thing, so he'd unlocked a new part of his quirk? Was it the fact that he was scared because of that, and he unlocked that? Izuku just didn't know, but he was scared of that part of his quirk. However, he would end up overcoming that in the next year, as Izuku would end up start to get more and more serious, as years would end up closing, as UA was end up going closer and closer and closer, as Izuku would end up knowing he's gonna have to get serious, and he can't be so happy-go-lucky anymore just because of, like, he is going to make it into UA. He already set his mind he's gonna make it into UA, and hero business isn't something to just mess around with. So Izuku stopped just being so happy and cheery all the time and started to get more serious about his training. That doesn't mean he was just a complete jerk to everyone. He just rarely talked to anyone because he was so busy training, and this caused him to get even more serious about his training. So when people asked him if they could go eat lunch or something, or if they could hang out after school, Izuku would politely tell them, "Oh, sorry, I'm training, I'm trying to get into UA." As Izuku had already learned Bakugo was training to get into UA as well, as Izuku would realize Bakugo was most likely training even harder than him, and he had to train even harder and harder than he already was. This is where the rivalry ends up coming into play. And that's where I'm gonna leave this What If off, everyone. I hope you all did enjoy part 1 of What If Deku had a drawing quirk. I thank you all for watching, and once again, I thank you all for watching once again, and goodbye.